Hello and welcome to my office floor. This is my physical TBR list. For those of you who aren't up to date on all the book world lingo, that is physical to be read list. These are the books that I have in my collection that I currently need to read. And it's not that big. I've only got 10 books currently in this list. But some of them have just been staring at me for a really long time now, and I know in my heart of hearts that I'm not going to read them. I had good intentions, it's not going to happen, so you guys can help me go through this list. Also, excuse the fact that this is like super overexposed. This is just my window. There's cats everywhere if you just can hear meeping, by the way. Oh god, Rhubarb, don't attack your sister. Be nice to each other. Oh Jesus. It's like having toddlers. Anyway, I think I was about to say, I'm sat in front of my window. This super overexposed bit at the top here. That's my window. Don't know how to fix it. Don't know how to make it less overexposed. So we're just dealing with it. Yes, I'm a YouTuber. Do I have any idea how cameras work? No, and that is not for lack of trying. I spent a long time trying to learn how cameras work. I did a photography A-level, for God's sake, and it just goes over my head. I've got nothing. But it's fine. I'm sure you guys don't care. Anyway, here's my list of 10 books, which you're going to help me cull. And then I have a little book haul for you, which is really exciting as well. I haven't bought new books in a really long time, so I went a little bit crazy. Right, let's go through this list. So, at the very top here, I have Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. I really want to read this book. I really, really, really want to read this book. I've been putting it off for the longest time. I think it's just because it's quite a chunky book. It's about 450 pages long, and the text, like, it isn't big. Like, it's fairly small when it comes to book text. And I'm one of these people, I prefer reading like smaller books or books which I know are going to be like real page turners, because it just makes me feel better about myself. I don't like it when a book's going to take me like at least 2 weeks to read. I don't know why, it's really stupid. It's just like this mental block that I have. So I am going to read this. I'm not going to get rid of it. I really, really, really do want to read this. I just need to do it. Maybe I'm going to make this the next book that I pick up. I might just have to do that. So she is staying. And then we have The Manningtree Witches by A.K. Blakemore. This is England, 1643. Puritanical fervour has gripped the nation. In Manningtree, depleted of men since the Civil War began, the women are left to their own devices, and Rebecca West chafes against the drudgery of her days. When Matthew Hopkins arrives, asking bladed questions and casting damning accusations, mistrust and unease seep into the lives of the women. Caught between betrayal and persecution, what must Rebecca West do to survive? This, I think, from what I can gather, is about the witch trials, or like about people thinking women are witches. Controversially, or maybe surprisingly for some people, I'm really not a fan of historical fiction generally. It takes a lot for me to really get into a historical fiction book. Generally, it's got to be about the witch trials, or like based in some sort of like feminism, or maybe about like the plague or the Great Fire of London. If it's about any of those things, and generally I can get into it. Anything else in terms of historical fiction, I'm really not that interested. But I've heard very mixed reviews about this book, and I really do want to read it. I'm just very nervous to pick it up. So again, this is going to stay in my to-be-are list. Oh my god, I filmed 3 videos today. This is the last of 3 that I'm filming, which might also explain why I'm very shiny and just generally not looking great. But I'm also running out of words. So again, this one is staying on my TBR list. I just need to do it. Somebody make me do it. And then we have The House of Impossible Beauties by Joseph Cassara. Again, for very similar reasons to Girl, Woman, Other, I just haven't picked this one up because she's chunky and she's over 400 pages long. The text is quite small, and I'm nervous to read this because I am either going to love this book with my entire heart and soul, but if it's anything less than perfect, I'm going to be really upset, because this is about the Harlem Ball scene in New York in 1980, and if you know anything about queer history, the Harlem Ball scene is just so, so important. So this follows the House of Extravaganza, who are a real drag house in New York City. I think they're still around. I think, but they definitely were really big in the ball scene in the 1980s. And from what I can gather, it is based on real people within the House of Extravaganza. I don't think this is like a proper retelling of anything particular that happened, but I think like it's about Hector and Angel Extravaganza, Venus Extravaganza, and I think it's like based on these real people who like I know things about. Obviously I don't know them personally, like I wish, but there's just a lot of like, there's a lot riding on this for it to be everything that I'm expecting it to be, and so I've been really, really nervous. Also, I've never heard anyone talk about this book before, so I have just no idea what to expect. I just had a flick through this and saw the author's note, which answers some of my questions I just had. So it says, though some of the characters who appear in this novel are based on historical figures, and many of the places described were important places during the decades covered, it's important to note this narrative is fiction. The portraits of the characters who appear in this story, along with the events and journeys covered, should not be taken as historical record. I believe that the role of the novelist is to search for poetic and narrative truth, and it is my sincere hope this novel is a representation of such an effort. So there you go. It's not a real story, but it's based on real historical figures, and I'm just scared. I'm scared that I'm not going to love this as much as I want to love it. What Lies Buried by Kerry Danes. This is a forensic psychologist's true stories of madness, the bad and misunderstanding. So Kerry Danes is a leading forensic psychologist. She spent her career investigating the actions of convicted men and women. The classic question she is asked, are they mad or are they bad? And this is basically a non-fiction journey through Kerry's work as a forensic psychologist. I do really want to read this, but I really, really struggle with reading non-fiction books. So what I might do is actually download this instead on Audible, because I feel like I'm much more likely to enjoy it that way. I really don't know what it is with reading non-fiction books, but I really struggle to like take in the information. I think it's because I'm such a fast reader, so when it's like a fiction book, I sort of see it in my head as like a movie, whereas I struggle to do that with non-fiction, and I'm very aware that I'm reading whilst I'm reading non-fiction books, whereas like fiction books, I forget I'm reading. Does that make sense to anyone else? And also I think with like just statistics and data and stuff, I prefer to hear it in like audio form, so I think I'm going to see if this is on Audible, and I'm going to listen to it on that, and maybe I'll sell this book on Vinted. I sell a lot of my books on Vinted, by the way. I'll leave my Vinted link down below. I think it's Georgia Marie _X over there, or Georgia Marie XO. One of them. I sell them all for like £1, £2. So if you ever want a book bargain, then you can feel free to go and check out from my Vinted. If you want, no pressure. Frostblood by Ellie Blake. This has been on my TBR list for the longest time. Have I read it? No. I just don't do fantasy books. I don't. I'll probably enjoy it if I picked it up, but I cannot bring myself to pick up this book and actually open it. And this was actually lent to me by my friend Simone, and so Simone, if you're watching, I'm really sorry. I know I've been saying for years I'm going to read it. I'm just not going to read this book, so you can have this back. And also, The Night Circus and The Starless Sea by, oh god, wait. The Night Circus and The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. They're both by the same author, aren't they? Again, Simone has lent me these, given them to me. I can't bring myself to open them. I know these are good books. People say they're really good books. They're just not the genre that I generally like reading, and I'm sick to death of them staring at me on my bookshelf and me just feeling guilt every time I look. So again, I might give these back to Simone because I had good intentions. I had really good intentions. I'm just not going to read them. Same with this, which I feel like is going to be very blasphemous to some people, but I just don't like fantasy books. This is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Again, a friend lent this to me. I've tried to open it, I've tried to start it, I just simply can't get into it. I'm seeing said friend tonight, so I'm going to take this back to her and give it back to her unread. I just can't. I don't know what it is with fantasy. I'm just not interested. I read the Harry Potter books when I was younger. I loved Harry Potter so much, and since then I've just never enjoyed another fantasy book. Maybe J.K. Rowling has just ruined my entire life. Maybe just through her being such a horrible human being. I've just decided never to enjoy another fantasy book again, just so I don't ever get burnt like that. Who knows, that might be it. Then we have Last Beauty Queens by... Where's the author? Oh, it's right at the top. Ivan Mona Lisa Ojeda, I think is how you pronounce the author's name. I picked this up. I went to a warehouse book sale called 66 Books in Hemel Hempstead like many months ago now, and I picked this book up then. This is Pearl Liaison on the front, which drew me to it immediately. This is about a group of trans Latinx immigrant friends who walk the streets of New York, smoke crystal meth, compete in beauty contests, look for clients in their possibly high heels, and fall prey to increasingly cruel immigration policies. Drawing from her own perspective as a trans performer, sex worker, and undocumented immigrant, acclaimed Chilean writer Ivan Mona Lisa Ojeda shines a light on a group of friends trying to survive the dark side of the American dream. Again, it sounds amazing. I think I will really enjoy this once I actually read it, but for very similar reasons to The House of Impossible Beauties, I'm just nervous to open this. But again, I do really want to read it, so that can stay. And then finally on my physical list, we have Madeline Stevens' Devotion. I picked this up because I was just very intrigued. It kind of gave me like sapphic vibes. I don't know why. When I read the blurb, let me read this to you. Ella is 26, lonely, hungry and far from home. Lonnie is also 26, rich, talented and beautiful, with a husband and son to match. Their fates intertwine the day Ella is hired as the family's nanny. She finds herself mesmerised by Lonnie's girlish affection and disregard for the normal boundaries of friendship and marriage, but soon resentment grows too. Crackling with sensuality and suspense, Madeline Stevens' debut novel is a dizzying thriller in which roles are confused and reversed, and nothing is ever quite as it seems. Does that sound gay to you? This sounds like it could be gay, which is why I picked it up. Like, the cover, it gives away nothing, although I do actually really like this cover. But then I made the mistake of looking up on Goodreads, and it's got such bad reviews that I just haven't opened it. I haven't picked it up. I can't bring myself to, because I'm like, why start a book that I'm sure is going to be bad? But is it gay? Maybe I just need to do it. Maybe I just need to like dive in and find out for myself. And you know what? If it's bad, I can always just stop reading. I can stop reading. I can. So again, I think I'm going to keep this. So we've managed to cull my TBR down from 10 books to 5. Well, do you know what? That's alright, that is. I can do that. But then actually saying that, I do have a little book haul to do for you. So here I have 12 books to haul for you. I had a £50 Amazon voucher, which I spent on 7 of these books. I bought 7 of the books I can't find on Vinted. I'm probably not going to find in a charity shop and have been on my list for ages, so I bought those new. And then yesterday I went to see my best friend who lives in London, and we went to Streatham High Street, which has so many charity shops. We caught the bus down to one end of the high street and walked the entire way up and went in every charity shop on the way. And I bought myself 4 books in the charity shops. There's actually a BHF shop which is just books, and I was so excited to go in there, but I couldn't actually find many in there. I only found 2 books in the book charity shop, which was a bit disappointing, but it's fine, I survive. So yeah, anyway, let me show you. I'll start with this one. This is The Twyford Code by Janice Hallett. I recently read The Appeal by Janice Hallett, and I loved that so much. I really didn't expect to love it half as much as I did. Really enjoyed it. And then my friend Simone had The Twyford Code, which is the second book in the series. Or I don't think it's so much a series, I just think it's like the second book of that style that Janice Hallett has written, and so she's lent me this. She said this one isn't as good, but other people say it is better, so I'm very intrigued to see. So that isn't mine, but I'm going to read it. So let's start with all the books I picked up in the charity shops yesterday, starting with The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. I've kind of set this like weird challenge for myself to read like every Ruth Ware book. I don't really know why, I've just decided to try and do it. Her books I find are really hit or miss. Some of her like psychological thrillers that she writes are fantastic. Others really leave a lot to be desired, and I find it baffling how an author can be so amazing and then not so amazing in the next book. So I actually haven't heard anything of the death of Mrs. Westaway. When Harriet Westaway receives an unexpected letter telling her she's inherited a substantial bequest from her Cornish grandmother, it seems like the answer to her prayers. There's just one problem. Hal's real grandparents died more than 20 years ago. Intriguing. I want to read this. I've read so many Ruth Ware books and I know how hit or miss she is. So I'm intrigued to see what I think of that. And then we have The School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan. This I don't really know anything about. I just know that I've seen a lot of people talking about it recently. It doesn't seem like my usual style. I think this is more like contemporary fiction style book rather than like a queer romance or like a psychological thriller like I usually enjoy. But you know, when you see so many people talking about it and so many people whose like opinions that you really trust, when you see it in a charity shop for £2.50, you might as well go for it. So that is what I did. The Colour Purple by Alice Walker. This is a classic contemporary fiction that I have just never read, and I don't know how I've never read this book. So when I saw it again in the charity shop for £2.50, I thought, why the heck not? So I'm going to read this. I'm actually really, really excited to read this because people say it's incredible. Like, there's a reason so many people love this. I have a feeling it's going to be quite a tough read though, so maybe I'm going to wait until I'm in a pretty good mental space. The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne. Is this going to be another book that's going to sit on my shelf forever until I finally pick it up because it is so chunky? 100%. It is just going to stare at me, making me feel guilty for a really long time. Absolutely. But this has been on my list on Goodreads to pick up for a really, really long time. I actually don't 100% know what it's about, but I know that it's queer. I'm pretty sure it's, or some of it's set within like the HIV AIDS kind of time, and I'm fascinated by all that. So I think this is going to be really good. I think it's going to be really heartbreaking, but I do really, really want to read this one day when I can bring myself to. And then we're going to move on to the books that I bought on Amazon. I know, don't hate me. I had a voucher. What was I meant to do? I had to spend it on something. I spent it on books. Don't shoot me. It's fine. I bought some from charity shops. Like, swings and roundabouts, you know? I started with I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. I had heard nothing about this. I had never heard anything about this. And then I saw on TikTok, I think, somebody do like a really quick review of this book. And I was immediately like, yes, that sounds right up my street. So I like really didn't even think about it. I was literally like just on Amazon and on TikTok at the same time. And the TikTok review of this came up as I was shopping for books. And I just, no thought went into this. The unnamed narrator of I'm a Fan is in a seemingly unequal relationship with the man I want to be with. She is also addicted to cyberstalking the man's other lover, an online influencer she refers to as the woman I am obsessed with. Written with a clear and unforgiving eye, the exhilarating debut explores obsessive love, race, privilege and power dynamics, and heralds Sheena Patel as one of the most exciting and original voices writing fiction today. It's about online stalkers and online stalker, and it sounds fascinating, and it's really, really small, so I can read this in just like a night. It's less than 200 pages long, so heard very little about it, very excited to read it. Girl A by Abigail Dean. This, I have no idea what it's about. I know that it's like a mystery thriller book. I know that it's a book that I see everywhere. Could I actually tell you what the plot of this is going to be? Absolutely not. I mean, even the blurb on the back doesn't give anything away. Girl A, she said, the girl who escaped. If anyone was going to make it, it was going to be you. I am Lex Gracie, but they call me Girl A. I grew up with my family in the moors. I escaped when I was 15 years old. Now something is pulling me back. And it says on the back, a quote from Elle magazine, the biggest mystery thriller since Gone Girl. We all know that Gone Girl is my favourite mystery thriller of all time. Like, nothing can compare to Gone Girl. So that's a big statement to be making, but I do see this everywhere, so I assume it's really, really good. And again, I'm very excited to read this. Of course, I'm excited to read all these. I just bought them. Mistakes Were Made by Meryl Weisner. I think we're getting into the queer books now. Mistakes Were Made. I've seen this all over TikTok. It is about a mature woman, I think. A milfy style woman. And I must admit, that's not... I know a lot of lesbians are really into, like, older women. I'm not. Not my cup of tea, not my style. But people say this is really, really good, so I'm sure it is. Like, the fact that I'm seeing this everywhere is, like, consistently at the top of people's lists of, like, the best queer fiction books to come out last year. I assume it's going to be great. She Drives Me Crazy by Kelly Quinlan. I have just had this on my list for ages, and it was fairly cheap. I think it was only, like, £4 on Amazon. So I figured I would pick this one up. I think it's, like, a sports lesbian kind of vibe. Have I read anything else by Kelly Quinlan? Let me have a look. Wait. No, I don't think I've got anything else on my list. In my pile of queer fiction by this author. But I'm sure the name really rings a bell. Maybe it was going mad. Again, I think it's YA. Yeah, definitely YA. She is a Haunting by Trang Tan Tran. This was on my list of new fiction coming out in 2023 that I wanted to read. If anybody remembers that video I filmed at the beginning of the year. How beautiful is this cover? Like, this is so haunting, this cover. I'm so excited to read this. This is about a girl called Jade who's going to live with her estranged dad in Vietnam for a summer, I think. If she can be straight enough, Vietnamese enough, American enough, then college and freedom will be hers. But then I think there's like a haunting, ghosty kind of twist to this, so I don't think it's like fully reality based. I think, from what I can gather, some creepy things start happening in the house in which Jade is staying in Vietnam. Again, I don't know loads about this. This is a really new release, so there's been very limited reviews, but this cover, I just couldn't not buy this. Never Ever Getting Back Together by Sophie Gonzalez. Was I really going to turn down a book which is named after a Taylor Swift song? Of course I wasn't. I don't actually know if it was named after a Taylor Swift song, but I assume it was. This is about a woman who I think goes on to a reality TV show, and instead of falling in love with like The Bachelor, I think it's like a Bachelor style thing, she falls for another one of the women there. I'm sure. That's what I've heard about this. Fantastic premise for a book. Like, tell me that isn't amazing. I am, again, as I am for all these, very excited to read this one. And then finally we have In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. I am sure this book is also a queer book, but that might be wrong. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. It doesn't allude to that on the blurb at all, but I'm sure I've seen that it is. But either way, it's meant to be a mystery thriller kind of book. I have seen this book being talked about online for a really, really long time. It has been on my list for a really long time, but I think the paperback's only just been released in the UK, and I do not like hardback books. Like, you give me a hardback, I'm not going to read it. So I've been waiting very patiently for the paperback version of this to come out, and it finally has. I don't know if it came out like super recently, but I know that I check fairly regularly, and it's only just come out. Also, this is definitely the American version of the book, because American books are just always so much more floppy than English books. Like, you see? I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about American books. They're floppier, and they're always bigger as well. Oh, absolute carnage over there. And also it has it in dollars on the back. So this, I think, has come from America for whatever reason. I'm going to New York in 64 days, something like that. I can't remember. I'm going to New York in June, and I'm so excited to go to like Barnes and Nobles or the Strand. I want to go to the bookshop where they filmed the All Is Well, like the scene at the end with Taylor. I'm so excited, and I'm going to buy so many books, because books are always released in paperback in the US before they're released in paperback in the UK, and it drives me mad because I've got to wait ages for these books I really want to read. So I'm going to make myself a list, and I'm going to go to Barnes & Noble, and I'm going to buy so many books, like as many as my suitcase lets me bring home. So basically, I need to try and like finish as many of these books as possible before I go to New York, and undoubtedly I'll have another book haul for you then. I try not to buy too many books. That is like the loudest plane I've ever heard in my life. Anyway, I really try not to buy too many physical books at one time because I get very overwhelmed with my like TBR list. I hate when it's feeling like it's not going down. Some people are like, my hobby is buying books, not so much reading them. My hobby is reading books, and I like not having like an overwhelming selection to choose from. So once this list is down to like a few, I'll probably buy some more. But I'm definitely going to buy more in New York. I just need to get through most of these first. I also have a video planned for a couple of weeks' time to go through my digital TBR list. So I want to go through my to read list on Goodreads and on Storygraph and really sort of cut that down to books that I actually want to read, because there's some on there that are years old. I put them on there like years and years ago, and I just have no interest in reading anymore. So that'll probably be a video coming up in a couple of weeks' time. I'm trying to be sensible. I don't have unlimited space. I don't have unlimited money. I can't just buy books willy-nilly. I need to like think about it, you see? I'm trying to be good. That's why I also end up selling quite a lot of books on Vinted as well, because I just don't have the space to keep every book I read. And if I don't enjoy the book, what's the point in keeping it? So again, keep an eye out on there. There'll probably be some going up in the next couple of weeks, I'm sure. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Just a little book haul, you know, why not? And I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.